G'day punters and welcome to Inside 50. And in horse racing terms, our guest this week would have gone for a stack at the sales, beautifully bred. His father Jim, a 134-game champion for North Melbourne and 13 games for the Saints. And Uncle Phil, 141 games for North and 7 games for Footscray. But our guest this week, the one and only Andrew Krakeour, 102 magnificent games for Richmond, 35 for Collingwood. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Thank you very much for the introduction and for having me on the show, gents.
And as per usual, the one and only Shane Crawford. Very excited to talk to Andrew Krakeour this week, one of the most exciting footballers I've laid eyes on.
Well, hang on, I want to talk about the Krakeour brothers, North Melbourne days. The chemistry that they had was just incredible. Did you see much footage of those days?
No, not when I was younger. A lot of people ask me, did I feel pressure coming into the AFL system, and I didn't. And I always say no, because I didn't quite realise how good Dad and Uncle Phil were, and what pioneers and trailblazers they were for Aboriginal people. And obviously being my old man and uncle, so I didn't feel that pressure. But then once I've come back to Melbourne and I've worked in construction and on work sites, and some people a little bit older speak about they remember Jimmy and Phil Krakeour coming over and the impact that they had straight away at North Melbourne, coming over from the west, from Claremont, and just what they were able to do. So, I've certainly watched a fair few highlights, and I can see what all the fuss was about and all the hype. So it was huge for them to come over as a duo. You don't really see that in the AFL or VFL. It's just one person coming over, but they came over as a duo to North Melbourne, and Geelong showed interest as well. They wanted to pick them up, but they were performance-based contracts. So North wanted to give it up front. So it's a no-brainer. There you go. So North Melbourne it was.
Well, they changed the game, Quinny, just with the connection and just seeing these two wonderful AFL footballers, VFL footballer back in the day, with what they're able to do and the goals and the way they'd set up goals and set up each other. It was like, wow. And then all of a sudden, people coming through, the younger generation were trying to copy, they were changing the way. A bit like Josh Kennedy a few years ago when he had that real 20, 30 steps in a row and then have a shot for goal. The AFL said, please stop that, because all the Oz kickers are trying to copy and kick the way that you wanted to kick. But back in the day with Phil and Jimmy, it's just wanted to get the footy and do what they could do, which no one pretty much could do with a football.
Yeah, absolutely, Crawford. They had an uncanny ability to be able to understand where each other were on the footy field without even looking.
How do you do that? Like, how do they know? I suppose practicing as young kids and always playing a lot of football together.
Absolutely, and I think kicking socks up and down the hallways at home at Nan and Pops, I think might have had a bit to do with it as well. And my aunties as well, probably being some players that they played against and marks up and all things like that when they were growing up. But yeah, I think just that chemistry, obviously being brothers and understanding how they play exactly. And Uncle Phil's a left footer when he turns, and how he can kick the ball and dart. And Dad was more of a midfielder in and under. There was an actual clip I saw. It was the first time I saw it, probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was on Instagram. It was down at Cardinia Park, and the ball got kicked back from the half back line going to North Melbourne's forward line. Dad was playing probably a half forward flank, and Uncle Phil was right on the wing. And as I saw it, I knew where it was going to go. So the ball was kicked, and it was a ground ball, but Dad tapped it like 35 metres laterally, and it landed in Uncle Phil's lap, and he did a little pivot and he hit someone lace out in the forward 50. So that clip within itself, I was just taken aback. I'm not being biased because it's my old man, but to be able to do that on the footy field, how hard it is to be able to try to little deft taps, within a metre. So for it to go 35 and hit him lace out where he didn't have to break stride was absolutely amazing. And I look back and I'm very proud of what they're been able to achieve and the kind of footy that they played. It was absolutely outstanding.
Tell us about your younger days growing up. Was footy a huge part of everything you did? Did you play other sports as well? And were you as good at those sports as you were at footy?
I was okay at basketball. I wasn't aware, but Dane Swan, he reminded me that we used to play basketball against each other at Gladdy Park and West Meadows, I think it was. So I can't remember too much, but I did enjoy that. And I remember coming home watching NBA action all the time on the Saturday, and Michael Jordan, obviously a Bulls fan, everyone was. And then Oz kick as well. So I probably started my footy journey at under 10s in Gladdy Park, and I think Oz kick before that, and the Kookaburras, which was a red jumper with a blue stripe, so blue sash, navy blue. I enjoyed that. I think I did all right. I think I won a couple of best and fairest in the comp, and I think Daniel Harris was North Melbourne.
Right. Yes.
I think Melbourne player. I think I remember him coming up to me one time, and he said he thought he was going to win the best and fairest, and he didn't know about another young kid who come underneath and took it from him, and that was me. So I didn't find my footy back in the day, but I just enjoyed doing it in basketball, I suppose, and that's the only two sports I was really interested in.
And what about your football team? Which team did you support?
I was a room man. Obviously, Dad and Uncle Phil, and then Wayne Carey, Winnie Abraham. Loved how he went about it. Brett Allison, Keith, small forwards to be able to take big hangs and nice marks, and kick some really nice goals as well. So Winnie was an absolute star. Still remember that mark he took at Manuka Oval over Brendan Lade. It was absolutely huge, and I think I tried to get my teammates to stand, and so I could try to practice it at training a few times as well.
Well, we need to talk about, because one thing I do remember is you taking a spectacular mark playing for the Pies. I know we're jumping ahead, Quinny, but I do remember.
I haven't got to his teenage years.
Hang on,
He's getting a bit excited here, Crawford.
We'll go back. Don't worry.
Back, read the script, mate.
You did. You took a spectacular mark one year. I can still remember it. You flew, like a pop-up sprinkler, just straight up, and away you went.
I didn't remember it too well because it was Mark of the Year, thanks, Crawford. But I'll just let you know that.
Was it really?
But I didn't think I was. Yeah.
Did you win something?
Yeah, only 10K, but the missus and kids loved that. They just run them up. I was asking where the cars were, mate. AFL were going broke. They're only $1 billion company.
Well, that's right. They used to throw cars around back then. So who were you up against that year for Mark of the Year?
Andrew Walker, which I thought was very stiff. His mark was absolutely crazy, off the chart. So I remember, because I wasn't massive of going to AFL events and all things like that, anything I could do, I'd try to not do it.
Yes.
Avoid it as much as I could. And I remember one of the team managers said, to Leon Davis and myself, you boys, you got to go to the All-Australian. I said, no, I don't want to go. No, you got to go. Mate, I don't want to go.
Yes.
Because I was thinking, what do they want to get me to go when Walks is going to be the winner for the recipient for Mark of the Year? I said, no, mate, you got to go. And Leon said, no, I don't want to go. And he was bloody All-Australian half-back. And he didn't want to go either. He goes, brothers, I don't want to go if you're not going. But he said, no, you have to go, both of you. So obviously we ended up going, and all the boys rock in, and I'm sort of having a bit of a look around and, thinking, where's Walks? When's he going to rock up? And the ceremony started and the event started, and, still no Walks. I'm like, okay. And I was still looking around, and then I thought, what's going on here? And then as my name got caught up, it jeered that, I was going to be the recipient of Mark of the Year, and Clarko congratulated me backstage, and so it was nice to look back on it. Nice little achievement when I look back on my AFL career.
Yeah. Had goal of the year as well?
Should have got that, Quinny.
You should have got it.
Same year.
Same year. Oh, well, it was a pretty good goal against the Doggies. It wasn't too little. Just sold a little bit of candy and kicked a barrel underneath someone, but it wasn't too bad.
So you sold the candy and you kicked a barrel?
Yeah, I was just underneath someone. So I gathered it, a little bit of a blind turn, balked to, and as someone tried to smother it, I kicked a barrel between his body and his hand. So
yeah, right.
Not that I've watched it a couple of times,
only
from rough memory.
Hey, unbelievable highlights, really. Almost goal of the year and Mark of the Year.
We'll put the footage up under the podcast as well, because the Mark of the Year was sensational.
The Mark of the Year, it was a pack mark though, wasn't it?
Yeah. So but sort of leading up to that as well, I remember doing a lot of leg work with Scotty Pendlebury, and Marty is the strength and conditioning coach at Collingwood at the time, and the box squats and all that kind of stuff to be able to strengthen our legs up. So I felt quite strong in that area, but I didn't really go for my marks. As a small forward, you sort of stay down a little bit and you come and
front and square.
You play your role, and that's about it. So and then I remember that, and my brother came over to watch a game from WA, and he goes, he said, "Bros, why don't you try to take a hang?" And I was like, if the opportunity's there, I have a crack at it, So it was crazy how it all worked out. Ended up doing that, but more importantly, we won the game of footy. We came back. I don't know the exact score.
We don't care about winning the game.
No, but I'm shattered. I missed a goal after that, Crawford.
Oh, did you?
Yes, I did. I took a good hang, but I missed the goal. So.
Do you know what? You probably had snow on your ears. You're up that high.
Yeah, almost touched the roof, but
banged down the roof. Now we were going to play this audio, when it came up in his career. I mean, we haven't got him to Richmond yet. We haven't had the WAFL success. We haven't had the Collingwood, but seeing it's come up in conversation, this is that mark.
Thomas done some damage. Has Dale Thomas. Oh boy! Unbelievable jack in the box.
Jack in the Box. That's what I said. Pop-up sprinkler.
Yes.
So you probably would have been able to dunk with, doing all those weights, and leg weights and power squats and all that stuff.
Yeah. I my hops were going okay, and so that held me in good stead to be able to take a mark. But that's the only one I really took in my AFL career. But not a bad one to take and sort of have
that
on the mantelpiece.
That should be your ringtone. That should be your ringtone.
My screensaver. I might do that when I leave. I'll put it on there. put my girls away and of the screensaver and put myself up there. What do you reckon?
Yeah, why not?
Do it after 10 o'clock or something like that. When they're in bed, then it goes to that. When they're awake, they see them. Now, we'll just go back before that brilliant mark at Collingwood, before you even entered the AFL system. At what age did you think, hang on a sec, I might be able to make a career out of this footy caper?
Probably just after I was 16. My partner now that I'm still with, I had my first daughter when I was 16 with my partner. So even before my AFL career started, I never had ambitions to play AFL. I only played footy because I liked it. All my mates were doing it. I went to Clontarf Footy Academy, which was an all-Aboriginal school, and eventually a teammate of yours as well, Mark Williams, he was involved in that program. And
great fella, we love Mark.
We got drafted together, shotgun.
Bit wild, but we sort of kept him in line.
So he was involved in Dion Woods as well, and we had a pretty good school side. And
that was Jared Neesham, wasn't it?
Jared Neesham, correct.
Yeah, he was behind all that.
Yep, so he was the co-founder and obviously the inaugural coach, the Freo Dockers, and so he put that together. And the late, great Percy Johnson as well, he's a WAFL legend over there, no longer with us, but looking back at the the time and effort that they were able to support us and try to help develop young men as well was extremely important for us to have positive male role models in our lives, and those guys certainly were. And then to be able to go to an all-Aboriginal school, I suppose, was pretty exciting, something I've never done before. So, but still thinking, footy was an ambition. Sorry, I had a young daughter to worry about, so education and employment was my priority. To think, okay, I've got to get a job and I've got to look after my family.
Well, you're 16 years of age.
16 years old.
So how do you mentally get your head around that? That you've got to be responsible for this life coming through and provide as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, mate. It was a really, really tough time, but then we were sort of so lucky to have some great support and people around, and my partner's parents and family members, as well as my mum and family as well. So we had some really good people to be able to support us, because we're basically kids having a child. So that was we struggled with that, and it was really difficult. But I suppose through that year of 2000. School footy started to go all right. We started to play some pretty good footy and against some private schools over there that could, were known to be good, breed good footballers, and we probably started to get on the radar of some AFL clubs at that stage. So I think probably towards the end of the season, I remember speaking to Jared, and he goes, "Oh, you want to nominate for the draft?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know what I need to do that. I need to find a job. I need to look after my family. I can't be worried about football." And he said to me, "Oh, if you nominate for the draft and you get picked up, which the couple of teams might be keen on you, that'll give you a good income to be able to support your family." So I said, "Okay, no worries. Where's the papers? I'll nominate and I'll sign up." So the reason why I signed up to the AFL is to be able to support and look after my family. It wasn't to try to follow Dad or Uncle Phil's footsteps at all. It was to be able to support my young family that I had. So I was lucky enough to be able to get picked up by the Tigers in the 2000 draft with pick 41. So not having the greatest preparation to the AFL through state squads and things like that. It was a bit of a shock to the system, and I really didn't know what I was in for. To making that move, it was a culture shock from, to be able to be in WA looking after our young family, but then all of a sudden coming into a professional sporting organisation, and then trying to find my way to be an AFL footballer.
Well, it's huge. It's huge. Coming to Melbourne, big city, Punt Road Oval. Obviously, you wouldn't have probably never done a pre-season or a proper pre-season,
No, never. Never, Crawford. I didn't even know what a pre-season was, mate.
And back then, 2000s was still very much, you get out, you do it.
Just get
smashed. You just keep going. Yeah, you just get smashed. So, how are you feeling about that once pre-season had started and you're thinking probably, I just want to go back home?
Mate, I remember our pre-season camp. We went to the Grampians, and fair to say I was the first bloke to sleep every single night when we pitched up our tents. I remember a couple of the boys, Matthew Richardson and Nick Daffy, were in our team. But mind you, I found I had to find little bits and pieces. We had a little bit of a map, and I found something that was a game winner. So, boys, you got me to thank for that.
Well, that's right.
But still, I remember, mate, I was so tired. I haven't walked that far in my life, and mate, I struggled. So to be able to think, this is only the start. It took me, probably 2 years to actually understand what was required of me to be an AFL footballer, as you spoke about, Crawford. Your diet, your sleep, your pre-season, your weights, all that kind of stuff. I had no idea how important and that kind of factor would play to me, establishing myself and becoming an AFL footballer.
What about other Richmond Indigenous players at the time? Was there any?
No, there was only Garth Taylor, who was at Fremantle. He came over on the rookie list, and then Lionel Proctor. He's a Koori bloke from over here in Victoria. So there's only those two guys on the list when I first started.
So who was someone that you sort of followed? You spoke about Matty Richardson and Nick Daffy. Was there any sort of older players that sort of took you under the wing?
Oh, I think Wayne Campbell and Leon Cameron were amazing. Yep. I think to be able to help and support me, and then sort of later on Nathan Brown. I got on with those guys really well. But I was probably too scared to talk to anyone, and to be able to, if I wanted help or support, and not knowing that, and you're looking back on it now, to be able to try to tap into the knowledge of those guys that have been around for a long time and actually understand what it takes to become an AFL footballer. So I was just quiet, and I sort of just probably struggled with it a fair bit to be able to, as I said, understand. But I think I look back on those guys, and they really helped and supported really well, supported me really well coming into the Richmond Footy Club.
And what about the weights? You would have looked at weights and thought, what are we going to do with that? Because I dare say weights weren't a part of your football routine.
I tried to put the blinkers on walking past the weight room, mate. That certainly wasn't my goal. I never lifted a weight in my life.
Because Mark Williams hated the weights. He absolutely hated it.
Oh, he only liked footy and kicking the goal and pulling the shotgun out. Oh, Marky
very
Williams.
Good at that, I tell you.
Absolutely. It was one of the straightest kicks and one of the best kicks we ever saw.
If someone's kicking for your life, you want him. Not now because he's got a bung knee, but back in the day, you wanted him kicking for you.
It was an amazing kick of the footy, absolutely.
You come to Richmond, the late, great Danny Frawley's the coach at the time. What do you remember about Spud, and how did he make you feel welcome?
Well, Spud, before getting picked up by the Tigers, he actually went over to see Dad while Dad was in prison, and obviously they were ex-teammates at St Kilda, and spoke about, Andy's going to be all right, mate. I'm going to look after him. I'll make sure your boy's right. So to be able to give Dad that, I suppose, sense of, I'm going to be okay, sense of security. So it was great that Danny took me under his wing and supported me, and it's unfortunate we lost a great man, and he impacted a lot of people's lives really positively. He was a beautiful soul, and he was great for me. He, it was black and white, no grey area. These are the things you need to work on to be able to play AFL footy, and obviously it took me a little while to be able to do that, but once I understood it and I did it at the level required, I got my opportunity. But I thought I really enjoyed playing under Danny.
Your first game against the all-conquering Essendon Football Club at the MCG in front of a huge crowd, round 7, 2001. You personally did really well. You kicked 2 goals. What do you remember about that day?
I remember I hadn't worn a tie too many times in my life, and I remember going to Dale Waitman's house with the tie and said, "Brother, can you help me do this?" Didn't wear that too many times. But I've got a photo of that I saw the other day, and mate, I was fresh. I tell you, I was a fresh young man and different. But going to the ground, and it was just an absolute blur. It was crazy. I remember even going on and getting a run, and I think there was a time where I just stood in the G and just looked around. I think the game was still on, and obviously the ball was in play, and I just had to pinch myself just to think about where I was right at that moment in front of, I think it was 95,000 or something. Well, no, I might have jumped a gun. I think 85,000 it might have been at the MCG.
That's a lot.
And mate, a lot of people, and
very different to a grand final because you got loyal supporters, half and half, just going at it, which is great.
Yeah, mate, I loved it. I look back and I'm very, very proud of it. As you said, Quinny, I kicked a couple of goals. My first goal got framed and sat at one of my brother boys' house. So, if you listen and see this, I want my photo back. Please give it back. I love you, my brother, but please give my photo back, my frame back. So that's I look back on it and I'm very, very proud.
Now, going to a new team and coming into an environment like that, how long did it take you to feel really part of the established team? Because in the first couple of years, like most young players, in and out of the team, but then you did find your feet.
I reckon in my third year, Quinny, I think I played 18 games and started to understand, okay, well, I reckon I have what it takes to be able to be a contributor for this side and that small forward role to try to make it my own. So, yeah, it probably took me 2 and a bit years to actually get my diet, my sleep, my weight training, and to be able to understand. Didn't really have too much of, roles like they do in structures these days, but just to be able to understand. In early days, I probably knew to get out of Richo's way. He let me know, mate, get out of the way, you just wait there and crumb. And, so I understood that fairly early. But I reckon about 2 years, 2 and a bit years to understand what I needed to do to be an AFL footballer.
Were you there when Danny Frawley was sacked? Were you there?
Yeah. So that's when Terry Wallace had taken over.
Oh, so right. Because I do remember Spud lived around the corner from me, so I used to see him all the time. And whenever I'd see him, he was just full of life and just tell you a great story.
Yep.
What about this? And he'd tell me lots of Tony Lockett stories because he'd drive up from Ballarat. But he also told me a story that when everything was going off at Richmond, and he was under enormous pressure, he remember the big pumps for the footies, the big, this big compressor pumps you plug in and bang, they pump up the footies so quick. He reckons he walked into the meeting with this big compressor pump, which was like 100 kilos, and he's trying to hold it above his head. He's going to all the boys sitting there, what am I? And they're like, I don't know, what am I? He goes, I'm under the pump, aren't I? I'm under the pump. And he reckons that's when he knew it was pretty much the end.
Yeah.
But he was, you're very lucky to have someone like that because he was such a passionate person, especially when you're starting out your AFL career and you knew that, there was a bit of a connection there. But he was a wonderful person, even if he did sort of lose the plot towards the end. That's what AFL footy does, and pressure of not winning. But what a champion bloke.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're very thankful for the opportunity for Spud, to be able to take a punt on a young kid who just, had a young daughter of his own and been able to figure out what he wanted to do in life, and gave me an opportunity to play AFL footy. So forever grateful for the great man Danny Frawley to be able to give me that opportunity and see some probably something that I couldn't see it in myself at that stage, and to have that faith as well. So, Danny was a really important part of my life, and, the reason why, I got my first opportunity at the Tigers. So, as I said, very appreciative and thankful for.
Favourite Spud story? Have you got one that makes you laugh when you think about it?
Yeah, I do that one as well. I think one, I don't know if it's been told, but Big Brad Ottens, he got... I think so. They had a game, and I think they had a bit of a, I don't know how long the break was for the next week, and they're right, boys, go in and enjoy yourselves. Yep, everyone sort of went and enjoyed themselves, I think, and I think Big Brad Ottens might have enjoyed himself a little bit too much, and then he was walking around in St Kilda, and one officer saw him, and he was a Tigers supporter, and he was like, far out, that's Big Ottens, we need him next week. Get back in here. So they took him back to the. I took him back to the cells to be able to, try to sober him up and see how he was going and whatever else. And so he wasn't charged with anything, no disorderly, no nothing. They just wanted to look after him because he was a Tigers man, the officer. And they took him in, and then I think the phone call, they had to try to make the phone call. And I think they pulled out a card on his in his wallet and had all the big wigs of Richmond, and the only one they knew was Danny Frawley. So Danny Frawley gets the call pretty early hours of the morning, and wife Anita picks up, and I think Danny was watching the replay of the game that we had a good win, and just sitting back in his theatre room enjoying that. And then Anita comes in and says, phone call, who is it? It's you better want to take this. It's something about Brad Otten. So told him about what was going on here, and he had to go back and go down and pick Otto up. So, and Otto's in the cell, and there's a little bit going on there, and he's sort of trying to sober up, and Spud goes in there, and he walks in the back, and then Otto said to him, "Hey Spud, how you going? What'd they get you for, mate?" "No, mate, no one got me. I'm coming to get you, big fella." So that's I enjoyed that story. I had a bit of a giggle.
He would have told that so many times too, Spud. He would have told that every
I reckon he's told that to me, yeah. But I reckon he's thrown himself in deeper there, Spud. But that's a great story. I love it. Fantastic.
Now, when you got to Richmond, things were going quite nicely. Unfortunately, the wheels for the Tigers did fall off, but one of the highlights was your relationship up forward with Matthew Richardson. We mentioned you kicked 102 goals in 102 games for Richmond, and As a Richmond supporter, I love watching that 1-2 punch of you and Richo up forward. What was it like playing alongside the great man? And did it take you a while to get used to his game style? Because he can be a little bit combative if things don't go his way.
Oh, mate, I think a couple of times when Matty Knights kicked a couple of ground balls at him and he let everyone know about it. And then he got dropped the next week. But Richo was an absolute star. People talk about the best players that you've played with, and Matty Richardson is certainly one of those. And a lot of talked about his goal kicking, but the amount of times that I saw him practicing his goal kicking on his days off and what he was able to do, he was an absolute star. At the later part of his career as well, to go to a wing as well, just to show his natural athletic ability was absolutely outstanding. But yeah, I got to know pretty early just to how Richo played, and he liked to lead up at the ball carrier, and also he was a really good one-on-one mark as well. So just to be able to understand if I'm going to time my run, I'd like to be able to maybe start probably behind and a little bit lateral. Richo is a bit quicker than me. His long strides, he'd take 3 or 4, and I'd have to take 15. So, just to be able to understand that, and that comes with chemistry, and to be able to play footy with people for a long time. So I did understand that, and he didn't drop too many, but when he did, it was my job to be able to get to the drop of the ball. So, and I was able to do that, not too bad on a few occasions.
Now it's obviously something.
You got to talk about Richo's goal kicking, because he's spoken about it before, where he just gets super negative and just stresses out. Did you have a word to him about how to, because you're a beautiful kick, so did you have a word to him on, mate, just relax, just take it easy, because I don't know how many goals he finished with throughout his career, but it could have been well over 1,000 if he had been able to kick straight.
Mate, he's like, people sort of say that about him, his goal kicking, but he gave us a stat. I was at listening to Richo speak not too long ago, so I think I can't remember the exact stat, but I think within 30 games and your average goals, I think the year before he got injured or something like that, or a couple of years ago, he was the most accurate kick for goal through that 95 season, or 95, 94 season, I think it was. So he didn't mind ripping that stat out and telling everyone. But he
was kicking him from 15 metres out back then.
But that was a problem.
That's the problem.
I think he was better when he was further out, though. I think the problem was when he got closer to goal.
Yeah, they seemed to close in on you a bit. The post just creep in a little bit.
No,
but I love playing with Big Matty, and he's an absolute star. And yeah, I've enjoyed my time with him.
It was great to watch. Very entertaining.
We move on from your Richmond days. Tell us about Terry Wallace and your relationship with Tiger Terry.
Oh, yeah. He was obviously my second coach. Didn't have, I wouldn't say, there was not the greatest relationship, but sort of nothing untoward or anything like that. It was just so he probably come in with a few different ideas, and I was able to sort of play some not too bad footy in 2005 and probably 6, and then obviously it's we'll probably touch on a little bit as well, documented what's happened there with my footy career and personal life as well. But with his coaching ability, it was a little bit different to Danny's, but unfortunately it doesn't help when you don't have a whole lot of success either. So a little bit of a turnover, through positions and whatever else, and sometimes a little bit of a scapegoat as a small forward when you're not doing your role, and unfortunately I didn't have the greatest form under Terry.
It's the hardest position, I think, a small forward role. Although these days, they focus on the pressure, which they never used to back then. It was all about how many goals has the small forward kicked. That's all it was about. But if your team's not doing well and the ball's coming in nice and slow, it's the worst position you could possibly ever want to play. So it's very, very tough. So I can only imagine the pressure that builds, and then all of a sudden you start to think a bit selfish because you're trying to look, I need to get on the scoreboard, and that's only natural. So, and Terry Wallace is a different thinker about the game and the way he does things, and we can still remember when he coached the Bulldogs and had an 18-man press against Essendon, which was the first of its kind. So he was a different thinker. So he would have been the absolute opposite to Danny Frawley. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I wouldn't say I struggled, but it just took a little bit more adjusting to, I suppose, and with Terry's methodologies and how he sort of went about his footy, and what the kind of footy that he wanted his team to play. And he had his own sunbeds too. Terry Wallace, the coach. He certainly did. He invited the boys over and have a look. Did he? No. Did you go and have a look at his sunbed? No, not me. I didn't get the invite. But I know Nathan Brown. He used to pop out there. But, that's quite incredible, isn't it? I didn't think about it. But, Terry and Nathan Brown did look very
Very brown during the winter.
They always look refreshed, didn't they? Yeah, 100%. No doubt, Brad, they would have been hanging out over there, 20 minutes either side.
Now, as you alluded to, your Richmond career unfortunately didn't come to an end in the best of circumstances. At the end of the 2006 season, you went back to Perth and there was an incident that's been well documented. For those that might not know the story, can you just give us a quick recap?
Yeah, I was involved in an incident, Quinny, where I, where I assaulted someone and, look back on hindsight and even sort of understanding after it happened, completely did the wrong thing and, through my own actions, there was a really negative impact from, not only myself, my football career, my family, my loved ones, but also the victim and his loved ones and family as well, and as a community. So I was involved in that. I later got charged, with intent to cause grievous bodily harm. That was a massive, just a huge blur that year. I think after the Christmas period, I remember, Terry Wallace talking about, and I had a pretty good pre-season as well, and been able to think about, okay, you've put all this work in, you've laid a really good foundation, make sure you look after yourself, enjoy your break, don't get into trouble, don't get into strife and anything like that. And I remember him saying it, but then obviously with the incident that happened, it was certainly something I wasn't thinking about and a moment I'm certainly not proud of. But it was a huge lesson for me to be able to go through that and understand, and be fully accountable of my actions and, what the consequences were because of that and through my own actions. So, I was eventually, delisted by the Tigers in 2007 and trying to, continue my football career after that was, pretty tough, just thinking about, a court case hanging over my head where I was going to possibly go to jail, lose my freedom, lose my football career and, more importantly, be away from my family, my children and my partner. So it was, it was through those actions, there was as I said, a huge negative impact and, something I still look back on today and, it was a huge lesson for me and something there I'm certainly not proud of.
It must have been incredibly difficult to go back to Richmond for 2007 with this hanging over your head. Your impending freedom's going to be taken away and to try and focus on playing AFL at the elite level.
I remember I just felt so embarrassed through my actions and what I did, because that's, that wasn't me. Obviously, it was me, and as I said, I'm accountable for what I did, and there's no other factors and there's no other reasons about why it happened, but because of what I chose to do. So I'm under no illusions that that's the case. But just very embarrassed and sort of going back to the football club and having this hanging over my head and thinking, what do my teammates think of me? What does everyone else think of me? And, am I going to be welcomed back? And I remember going back to the first session and there was a tan run, which I didn't like at the best of times. And and then there was obviously cameras waiting to be able to, see me and get a bit of a chat and a story and whatever else. And I really struggled with it. I remember chatting with Terry about going over or not. But, with things like that, you got to take, responsibility and of your actions and consequences, and it was what it was, and I had to get over there and do what I had to do, and get over to the town and whatever else. But certainly an absolute blur that year, and really hard to be able to try to focus on footy. That was certainly the furthest thing from my mind.
Well, a big lesson learned because you went off to prison, didn't you?
Yeah, correct.
So how long were you in prison?
16 months.
16 months.
Yeah.
Right, and where was that? That was in Western Australia.
Yep.
Yeah, right. And so, how did you find that?
Sort of going back, so finishing up from Richmond, I didn't set up things as well as I would have liked post footy, and to be able to understand that, okay, footy's going to, finish one day. I need to be able to set up for life after footy. I didn't do that too well. As I said, in 2004 I signed a 3-year contract and thought, I'll go right, and then I'll hopefully, get another one soon. So, footy was really all that I knew. And once finishing, I didn't have anything else to go for. Towards and look forward to. So I came back to WA and tried to get involved in footy again. There weren't too many people that were willing to take someone on who had a court case hanging over their head, but the Swan Districts Football Club did. And I remember meeting the CEO, Brendan Parker, at the time, and they were really keen to be able to get me on board and to play and be involved in their programs, their Indigenous programs they had at the footy club, and which sounded great, but unfortunately, as I said, all I could think about was this court case hanging over my head. And the chat that we had with Brendan, and then he said, all this about, I said those great things, he wanted me to be involved. And I said, mate, at the end of it, I'm a massive chance to go to jail. And he said, it's okay, mate, we'll deal with that when it comes. So that sort of just planted the seed with me that these guys had my best interest at heart and they wanted to support me. So I wanted to try to do whatever I could, but unfortunately I was only there for probably 7 or 8 games, and eventually I was found guilty of the charge I mentioned earlier and sentenced to 32 months with a minimum parole period of 16. So going into prison for the first night was pretty scary. It was going down to the holding cells and things like that, and then being found guilty, and looking at my family who were in the courthouse and to understand the negative impact that I had on them. Their hearts were broken, and I just couldn't look them in the eye because I'd let people down that I love and care and I support, and I love dearly and respect and mean so much to. So that really hurt me, and I remember I couldn't look at them, and I went, just wanted to get taken down to the holding cells, and then we got a van out to the prison, probably about 15 or 20 blokes in the back of a van. It was really dark, and blokes were talking like that, going to prison was a normal thing, and I was just absolutely shocked, and how things went, and sort of I'm playing AFL footy, and all of a sudden I'm going to jail, and my life's over. So that was a pretty daunting experience, getting processed and getting your clothes and being ushered off to your prison cell. I remember walking down the hallway towards my cell, and the keys sort of just jiggling on the officer's leg and just hitting against his thigh, and it was just so quiet, and you could just hear the bottom of the shoes hitting the floor, and getting to the cell door and opening up, and then my brother, he got charged. He was involved in the incident as well and got charged, and he had to do 6 months, and he got 6 months on the bottom and then a full time of 12 months. So we went in together, and I remember getting ushered in, and then all of a sudden the door's getting shut, and it's just this huge thick steel door, and just a massive clunk when it shuts. I still remember it like it was yesterday, and then I remember putting my hand on the door trying to move it, and obviously it's not going anywhere, and jumping on the bed, I had the green prison clothes on, touching them to think, okay, this is really where I'm at, and the roof of the cell was probably half a metre away from my face, and felt claustrophobic, and touching that as well, and realising, far out, man, this is going to be home for the next 16 months at least. And so it was really, I suppose, rough and scary experience to be able to understand that I was there in that moment because of my actions and what I've done, and reflective of before, 6 months before, I was, 12 months before, my job was to be able to play AFL footy, running out in the G every week, so nearly every week. So it's pretty it's certainly an eye opener.
And so, what was prison life like? Were you, when you're wandering in the yards when you're allowed to, were you scared? Were you thinking, gee, I'm mixing with a lot of bad people here? Were you scared? How did you mentally
were
get
they
through?
maybe not bad people that maybe had made a bad decision or a bad choice or been in bad circumstances, and did you walk away feeling more empathy for a lot of them?
Yeah, I think we understand people are in prison because they do something wrong, but not necessarily meaning that they are bad people. I'd like to think I was one of those that made a terrible decision, and my consequence from those actions was to be able to, I broke the law, so I served my prison time. So I do think that, and that's I think that's in society too. You get good people, bad people, indifferent, and going through all different things in their journey. So I don't think that's any different, I suppose, to the prison population as well. Obviously, as I said, you do get some really bad people in there, but I met some good people that I'm still friends with today from that time I was in prison. So I wasn't scared. I sort of I had my brother with me, and sort of had unfortunately, Dad had a fair experience of being in prison as well when I was a young fella. So I remember him even sort of going, when we went to my trial, and he just said, before going to prison, hope for the worst and expect the best. So I sort of went for the mindset I was going to go to prison, which unfortunately was the outcome. But we were able to get out and sort of play a little bit of footy. I didn't really want to play footy too much because I thought that they'll be trying to take my head off if they could. So obviously, me coming into the jail system and people wanting to probably test themselves against me. But it was certainly different, and you had to probably try to learn the rules, pretty much straight away, because it's a different world in there. So to be able to understand what's required, what you need to do, and I suppose to be able to figure that out and think, okay, I can make it as easy as I can for myself, or hard if I try to push back and don't do what I need to do. So I just with that mindset, probably early on in the piece, I think it took me a couple of weeks, maybe a month, with my mindset. But sort of going back with what you're saying, I didn't really feel scared. It was, unfortunately, I knew a fair few people in there, and so people knew who I was, and I was okay. I didn't sort of, my life or anything like that wasn't in danger and things like that. But you just had to adjust, Crawford. It was what it was, and I was in now that situation. I had I had no other choice but to adjust. So if I thought about things, about what had happened, how I was there, and other factors, I wouldn't have, I would have probably been doing my own head in. So I probably did that for a little bit, but then as I spoke about my mindset, my shift, I think once I was fully accountable of my actions and understood, okay, you're here because of what I did, through my actions. So there's no ifs, buts or maybes. I think once I was able to get to that mindset, I could figure out, okay, what's the next move? How do I get out of here? And an old footy cliche as well, I learnt with our sports psychs, and being able to control only what you could control. So what I couldn't, I didn't want to put any time or thought or effort, because I could never change the outcome of that. So I couldn't change the outcome of the time I was in prison. It was at least 16 months. I couldn't change the outcome, or when I could see my family, my daughters, or my phone calls. So when I was speaking to my family, I was in a terrible position and environment and situation. I still try to be as bubbly as I could, because they were probably doing it harder than me. And so I try to put my own feelings aside and to be able to do that. And when I had visits with my kids, I remember I hated the fact that for my daughters, who I got to protect and care and love and support as much as I could, I'm putting them through this experience, and I didn't want them to come through, but then I also wanted to see them as well, and they wanted to see me. So to be able to try to juggle that and understand, the impact, or how my actions impacted my kids as well, it was very hard pill to swallow. But unfortunately, there's a lot of things I couldn't control, but the things that I could was, I suppose, how I went about things each day, with a little bit of a routine through training, and being around guys who that I could have a bit of a laugh with if I was feeling a little bit down and things like that. So that shift of mindset, and having that routine and structure within the prison system certainly helped me to be able to put some things together to help get my release and post footy.
And what about
post-prison?
What about jobs? Did you have any jobs while you were in there?
Yeah, I think I did. I think early days I might have had some stuff down at the. Early days, I think there was a little bit of stuff to help sort of give some food out to the guys and in the units, and then once I moved to another prison, it was like a bit of a sport and rec, so making sure all the equipment's all right, and the gym to be able to tidy up that and all things like that. So I had a few things to be able to try to keep me busy in there.
So you start out at Richmond, you try to avoid the weights, and then you go to prison, you're like, hang on, I'm going to go and lift as many weights as I can, because you get an opportunity to do that.
Oh, mate, there was certainly some in there, and we had to move around. The boys didn't really clean up after themselves, so had to tidy that up a bit. But that was one of the jobs in Warraloo when I was there.
So you learnt quite a lot, obviously, being in prison, and as you said, you were always super positive whenever you were around other people or your family came along. But so you learnt a great deal to put you in a good place when you did get released, to go on and make the most of whatever life you have coming out of there.
Yeah, absolutely, Croft. It wasn't an ambition once again to play footy again. I thought obviously my time had been done. I played footy and it was past me. I wasn't going to be able to play footy again. I was still 26, 27 at the time, and it seemed like a young man's game. And I through my imprisonment, Swan Districts still kept in contact. Brian Dawson, who was the coach, is a beautiful human being, such a great man and an amazing coach, and Brendan Parker as well, and a couple of the old timers, Johnny Cooper and a few guys came and see me as well, which I'm so thankful and appreciative for, to be able to put themselves through that experience, to be able to come and support me, it means so much. So they kept in contact. So I was sort of, as I said previously, they planted the seed as well, and I wanted to try to repay some faith. So upon my release, they helped out and set up some nice routine and structure where I could work at the footy club and be able to come back and play as well. So that was huge for me, and I just wanted to repay the faith that these amazing people in the Swan Districts Football Club had in me.
Before we get to your amazing 2010 season with Swan District, the day you released from prison, now most people would probably want to go and have a nice meal or do something like that. Not the man here. you drive 3 hours to a footy carnival at Bunbury and absolutely dominate. What happened there?
That's not too bad, boys. Well done, well done. That is correct. I said to my partner, I said, I'll bring the girls in. I said, oh no, let's just go for a cruise and we'll go down to Bunbury. And I thought, oh yeah, all right then, no worries. So I just had my freedom. My partner picked me up and it was amazing. It was just to be able to be free and to be able to go and do what we wanted to do. And we went for a cruise down to Bunbury. I was all keen and excited and played down there and took a very good hang, mind you, Quinny. I'm still trying to get the photo of that, but I took a nice hang and I went all right. But then I think probably half time or maybe after the first game, I thought, I want to go and see my girls. So jumped straight back in the car, went back up to Perth, and I spent the time with my baby. So. Which I miss dearly, but that's a very good get by you.
I just love it. People are going, geez, that looks like Andrew Krakeour. Geez, he's good like Andrew Krakeour. Could be Andrew.
They did it like that, isn't it?
Looking up, seeing the hangers. Now you go to Swan Districts, and we all know you had an amazing season. And the grand final, it was something of a movie. You're up against a Claremont team that beat you by 82 points a fortnight earlier. You come out. You win the Sandover medal, the Simpson medal, and this is what happened in the grand final.
Swans must mark. Well done. Knocked down by Stevenson. Krakeour gathers, shoots, and Swans have won the grand final. 33 minutes gone. And with his fourth goal, surely Krakeour has given Swans their first flag in 20 years.
Wow, that's cool.
Gives me goosebumps. I probably should have kicked 7, Quinny, but 4 do. I missed 3 sitters in the first quarter. But even that season, I think, sort of go back to the start of it, once I was released in 2009, October, I was really fit. I suppose my mind was clear. I was in a good mental space. And as I said, just wanted to repay the faith that this footy club had in me. I remember the first session I went down, I was really sheepish. Brian Dawson spoke to myself and, after the session and with everyone around and said, I just want to say, welcome back to Cracks and great to have you down here and, can't wait to get you amongst it. And all the boys got around me and that relief, I felt such a sense of relief that these guys, these people, this footy club do want to support me and they have my best interests at heart. So from then on, as I mentioned, it just made it also clear that, I'm going to do whatever I can to repay the faith, to this footy club and these people. So the first game came around, I had an absolute shocker. We played West Perth. Didn't do too well. There's a little bit of a write-up in the paper and, I was really a lot of self-doubt at that time thinking, should I give it up? I probably, the game's passed me by now. But, through my mum and my partner, to be able to reiterate, it's only one game. You can do well next week, you'll be all right. And, we had a bye the next week, so it made it even worse. So I had to wait an extra week to be able to try to get it, rectify my performance. But, from round 3 onwards, I think I played some pretty consistent footy and did really well, but under no illusion that, if it wasn't for my teammates, if it wasn't for my support networks around me, the football club, my very close friends that supported me during that time, that I wouldn't have been able to play the footy that I did. Yes, I've won a lot of individual awards, and I was the one that spoke about. But I think behind the scenes and off field, the people that I had around me were absolutely amazing, and they're just as much as an influence as for me to be able to achieve those awards. So, and people, I'm very, very thankful for to be able to have in my life. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the Swan District, I think my brother, he won a grand final at the Swan Districts. Must have been a couple of years after because they said that it had been 20 years since they'd won. But, just to have that support and you just wanted to repay, you can't repay any more than that. Dominate on a grand final day.
Well, I don't think so, Crawford. I won every award there was. I put them in the paper nearly every week that year in the West Australian. So I think their brand and what they were able to do, I sort of repaid. But no, mate, it was a crazy year. As I said, a bit of a time for reflection as well. After winning the Sandover medal, it was just a huge...
Oh, you won that as well, did you?
Yeah, I won that, but it's good to see someone's all over me coming in, Quinny. Thanks, Crawford.
I don't go off Google, Wikipedia. I just go off the conversation.
Yeah, no, that's all right, mate. Yeah, so I was able to win that. Probably I tied it up with the last game of the season. I had 51, I think, against Peel. So Lukey Blackwell.
So 51?
51 touches, yeah.
Oh my goodness! You had 51 touches.
Yeah, so I went all right.
Playing on ball, or you were playing half forward?
playing on ball.
Were you?
Yeah.
Were you responsible for a man? Did you man up back there?
Mate, my job was to be able to get the footy and give it to the forwards, mate. Not to man up. Hey, you should. If anyone should know that, you should know that, Shane.
When you're having 51, who cares about your man?
Yeah, so I was able to win that, and just a bit of a reflection for myself, to be thinking back. Okay, 9-10 months before this, I was not really had a future. Didn't really have a clear road, any clarity around my life, what would happen, and then now I'm going to be playing in a WAFL Grand Final. I'm named the best player in the state league. With all the other awards I won as well. But to be able to cap it off with that premiership with an amazing group of people. It was pretty crazy, Quinny and Crawford, to be able to do that and look back on it now. It's young Stevie Caniglio. He was a 16-year-old kid, kicked 4 goals and had 16 disposals. So he was an absolute star. And young Michael Walters as well. He was in that side. So after the celebrations, Nick Nat, he had his shoulder surgery and he was on ground after the celebrations. And Big Ash Hansen, who took the reins from Vossi a couple of weeks ago, he was a premiership teammate as well. So we had some great players in that team, and I was my back's still sore from carrying them that year, and I let them know that there. But they were amazing, mate. I've got so much love and respect for the boys, and it's as you know, premierships, they're very hard to come by no matter where you play, and it's a very memorable moment in my life.
In terms of enjoyment, just how much fun you had. Would 2010 get the gold medal? Was that the most fun you had in a season?
100% it would, yeah. Just sort of, had the people around me being home with my family after the pretty tumultuous, 12 months prior to that. So, yeah, I did love my football. I was, loved being at home and, the people that I had in my corner as well. So, yeah, it was the most fun I had on a footy field or, probably in my life through that year.
And then you've played for one of the biggest clubs in the country in Richmond, and then arguably the other biggest club in the country in Collingwood comes knocking. How did those talks start, and did you ever think you'd be back in the AFL system?
It came through Scotty Cummings spruiking about, hey, brother, the Pies want you, brother, they want you. And I said, no worries, Scotty, we'll see how we go. But, I think we caught up. Scotty was pretty keen and obviously still involved with the Pies, and organised, I think, a chat with Derek Hine probably halfway through the season. Just have a bit of a chat about, possibly me wanting to come back to Victoria and playing footy. And again, I didn't really, there wasn't an ambition to come back and play footy. I was home, I was with my girls, I was with my partner, I was, loving life. I was back on country in WA, and life was good, So, but, probably a few factors that they just won a grand final. One of my best mates and Leon Davis was at the footy club, and to be able to reunite and play footy with him was a huge factor for me to be able to, wanting to play AFL again. So after having a bit of a discussion with Barbara, and obviously Derek and the footy club reached out after the grand final, as they should have, Crawford.
They all should have been.
But and then it was a pretty much a no-brainer to be able to ask Barbara, do you want to go back to Melbourne? And yep, we made the move and signed up with the Pies.
Mick Malthouse, what were your first impressions?
The phone cut out a couple of times when I first started spoke to him. So, and obviously you hear things, but Mick was great. He said to me, mate, you're not here to come up and make the numbers. You're here to be able to play footy, and we think you can make us better. So, to hear that from the premiership coach, so they just want a flag, and thinking that I can come and add to their group, gave me an enormous amount of self-belief and confidence and I knew within myself as well, my body and my mind, and absolutely knowing what was required at AFL level now, that I could come in and make an impact straight away. So Mick was huge for me. I saw him the other day after doing some radio at NERS, and every time I see him, I have a smile on my face, and he's a guy that took a punt on me as well, and after my journey, and as I mentioned about Danny, very thankful and appreciative of the support that Mick Malthouse was able to give to me and my family.
What was it like playing for Collingwood? Because it's always tough playing against Collingwood because they've got such loyal supporters, loud supporters, and there really is that 19th sort of player, from the crowd support they get. So what was it like running out for the Magpies? You would have hated them back in the day?
I didn't really hate anyone. There's a bit of a strong word there.
Oh, was it? Well, dislike.
There wasn't too many teams. Maybe Hawthorn. I didn't like Hawthorn.
Yeah,
I think. But you used to give us a bit of a touch up.
Cocky captain.
Yeah. Oh, very.
Yeah. Peacock chest out a little bit.
Small man syndrome. Yeah.
No, but Yeah, so I loved it. It, as you said, to the crowd, and I think I've only played there 3 years, but it felt like I played there, for 7 or 8, because I think how the members and supporters and everyone welcomed me in, and how much they supported me, and like you could hear when you're playing footy, the sort of bit of a the crowd rise up when you get hold of the footy, and it was crazy good. I loved playing in front of the Collingwood faithful, and it was certainly helps when you're winning games of football as well. So the crowd get up and about, you get good crowds at the game, and more importantly, we're winning. So unfortunately, we didn't win the ultimate that year, but I loved playing in front of the Collingwood faithful.
So you had players, Scotty Pendlebury, superstar. Swanee was around at the time, was he? Nathan Buckley had just gone into coaching, so he was an assistant coach.
Yep.
You had a lot of really good people around to learn from and to see the way they do things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you talk about those two guys, Swanee and Pendlebury, totally they're poles apart with sort of how they went about things, I suppose, but still the impact that they had on the field, was very similar. They were absolutely outstanding players, and looking back on my career, you think about the best players that you've been able to play with. Them two guys are certainly at the top of that list, and they were great to learn from and how they went about things. As you said as well, you had young Steele Sidebottom as well. Brother Hariti Lumumba.
You had the Rat Pack.
The Rat Pack, mate. Didak.
Did they let you in there?
I was honorary. mate. So Leon and I sort of made an appearance every now and then. So, mate, we had some great players there, and But as I spoke about before, enjoying my footy. When you're winning, you enjoy it more, and it's a lot more fun. But had a great bunch of guys, and knew what we had to do when it was time to flick the switch and do what we need to do for footy and play and prepare and all that kind of stuff. We did it to the best of our abilities, but we also had fun sort of with training and enjoying each other's company as well.
Now, Collingwood, the reigning premiers, had a great season. I think because you didn't win the flag, people forget what a dominant team it was throughout the home and away season, and unfortunately Geelong was just your kryptonite late in the season and then again on grand final day. But grand final day, walk us through that, because you'd probably never thought you'd play AFL footy again. You're walking out on the MCG grand final day and slot 3 goals in the first half.
Oh, I've missed that as well. You slotted 3 early.
Oh, mate,
you love grand final days.
Oh, mate, I thought I was going to kick 6. I was feeling on. I was feeling good. I just felt like I was right. I didn't, no nerves got to me. I was excited, obviously nervous, but good nerves. Walking, going on the ground sort of pre-game, and to be able to warm up and see the excitement, and even training that week was crazy, the amount of people we had at training. So to be able to go and as Crawford attests to the national anthem and that silence and then that build up and then the roar after that is spine tingling stuff, and it's something I'd never forget. But looking back on it, yes, Geelong was the only team we lost to that year. Twice, early in the season, the last game of the season, and then obviously the granny. So absolutely, they're our kryptonite. But what an amazing side they were, and we just give credit where it's due, and they were just too good for us on the day. But look back on it, and 95,000 to be able to look back, and another sort of bit of time for reflection, to be able to think where I was a couple of years prior. Pretty crazy scenes, and you probably couldn't have scripted. I certainly didn't.
It's funny, in America, players that make the Super Bowl speak about winning the Super Bowl because they made the Super Bowl, but in AFL it's almost like you've got to be shattered that you lost the grand final and not celebrate the fact you made it. You seem to have a really positive memory from the day and the experience, and I think that's the way it should be.
Oh, you do. You work so hard to be able to, at Crawford, be able to totally understand that with winning one in 2008, but to be able to put the work in, to be able to get there, it's so much, people probably don't understand what's required and the support. It's not an easy journey. You have your ups and downs, and to be able to get to the last day, to give yourself an opportunity is huge within itself. So I think, as you said, sometimes it is forgotten about a fair bit if you don't win it. But, I'd like to, appreciate things that have happened in my life. I either think it's a lesson or a blessing, I suppose, of things that happen. I don't really lose. I like to look at that and try to have a positive outlook and mindset with that. And, to look back, like not everyone plays AFL and not everyone plays in an AFL Grand Final. So for me to be able to do that, it's shattering that we didn't win, and I've never watched beyond half time, so I just watched till I kick my 3 and that's it. And I still look back on it with enormous pride.
Because you were at the club during, in hindsight, a controversial time when the reins were passed on from Mick to Nathan Buckley. At the time, what were the players feeling about that?
Oh, you've done well. Danny Frawley, you got Spud moved on, and then now you got Mick Malthouse. So we've worked out what the problem was.
Mate, the common denominator, Andy Krakeour. Different. It was very different. You never heard of too much like that before, with the coach being able to hand over the reins and someone being able to come underneath. And I think there was I don't know if it was it's been a little bit documented. It probably was took a little bit to understand and what was going to happen and how it was going to happen within the club. And probably I personally I would have loved Mick to be able to be there a little bit longer. Personally, I would have loved to for him to be my coach a little bit longer, as I said. But that's how Eddie.
Two bulls in a paddock.
That's
what it comes down to.
It certainly does.
You've got someone who still probably wants to coach, and someone who is ready to step in and start going. And you can sort of understand. Oh, look, we're trying to be ahead of the game, ahead of times, the way we do it, but. It was always going to be, two bulls in a paddock, headbutting, wanting the one job.
Well, that's right. Well, Nathan would have wanted to put his stamp on the team to be able to go forward and to be able to understand that. And obviously there was an offer for him to go to North Melbourne, I think it was, and he declined that offer, and understanding that he was going to take the reins at the Pies. So it wasn't always going to end greatly. And I'm just I wasn't personally a massive fan of it, but I wasn't the one making those decisions. So that was the club, that was Eddie, that was the board, and that's a decision that they made and had to live by. So it is what it is. You roll on, you adjust, you do what you got to do. And I had to play footy, so I had to focus on that. I couldn't really focus on what was going on at board level and with handing over the reins with coaches and things like that and the succession plan. So I just needed to try to play footy, and that's what I try to focus on. Biggest
differences between Collingwood and Richmond?
Success, obviously the main one that sticks out. I had a great time at Richmond, but unfortunately we didn't have a whole lot of success. But obviously there's been documented as well. some stuff that's come out around systemic racism and whatever else in the footy club.
At Collingwood, that is.
Yeah, at Collingwood, I never experienced nothing like that at Richmond. Where I talk to my former teammates and things like that, which they're very proud of, and to be able to understand that that was the case, and I'm very thankful. But they were who they are and how they accepted me, and for who I was as a person. But I suppose that a little bit of a hard one to speak about is obviously the Collingwood Football Club, and there's been a fair few incidents that have happened and been well documented as well. So just I think they're probably the main differences, but that really stick out to mind once I look back on it now.
And when Richmond, you're a completely different person, weren't you? You're just a young kid just trying to find your way. Collingwood, obviously, you had a better grasp on life because of the experiences that you had. But how do you, when you're in a situation like that, how do you put your foot down and try and stop it straight away?
That's a good question, mate. There were times that I was sort of a little bit hesitant to do it. Me
embarrassed, like are you embarrassed or just don't want.
You don't want conflict, don't want conflict, and probably, to be able to, think about how you want to be seen as well. And I think, sometimes I might have seen a bit of how, players before have been dealt with, and thinking that it's not really going to be dealt with in the right manner, and it might get pushed aside, which was certainly the case, unfortunately. So it didn't give me great confidence to be able to, want to speak about these things and when they happened and how they happened, and to be able to hit it head on, and just to be able to see the past experiences of racism that had come up. So I just sort of, kept it to myself and had to try to deal with it internally. And obviously the close people around me obviously knew about it. But something I struggled with not to deal with, when it happened.
When you say when it happened, was it just a totally different environment at Richmond compared to Collingwood? You mentioned it was a little bit systematic, just the odd comment here and there, and just a different view and probably unacceptable behaviour. Yeah,
absolutely. But and don't get me wrong, there were amazing people at the Collingwood Football Club. There's people I really enjoyed their company, and I'm not painting the whole club with this brush, but sort of people in certain positions, and the lack of wanting to do better and be better, was really disappointing. So. So we look back. I look back on that now, but thinking, if I would have liked to have done things a little bit different. But I think, as you spoke to about Crawford as well. I sort of understood things and just through my life journey a little bit more, and it was a little bit of a tough time, and unfortunately, a little bit of a stain on my AFL career at Collingwood.
Yeah, just on that, unfortunately, Cyril Rioli, an absolute champion of the game. It appears in hindsight that he's now left the Hawthorn Football Club in his eyes prematurely because of a similar issue. What did you make of that?
It made me sad. Like it cut me to my core. Within my spirit, I felt sad, and I really felt for Cyril, and through going through my own experiences and losing, one or two of our greatest players, not just not AFL but Indigenous players, and Adam Goods and Cyril Rioli to racism is just so sad. What those guys are able to do on the footy field, and obviously the impact that they had positively around people as well, and not having those support mechanisms and pathways to be able to deal with issues, and having the confidence, like I spoke about at Collingwood, to be able to hit it head on, and for people to be able to understand and why it means what it means and how it affects people so negatively. As I said, just so disappointing to be able to hear that and see that. And obviously there'd be, so many other issues, but I think it's just not a footy club issue. I think it's a society issue as well. And to be able to try to get better, but, through these incidents and where they happen, we need to try to be better and to be able to help support and educate and be able to look at it. Okay, this has happened, but it does get pretty draining to be able to having to explain and try to educate people as an Aboriginal man when these things come up and how they happened. And one of the things that sort of gets me is when a non-Indigenous person says, "Oh, well, no, it wasn't meant for that. That's not how I meant it." Are you taking it the wrong way? It's they need to be able to listen and understand. Well, if an Aboriginal person has said, or person of colour comes and says, "Well, this is what it meant and this is how it hurts me," you need to be able to take full accountability and just not talk and to be able to listen and understand. And that's where we're going to get better, instead of trying to make excuses and, okay, no, but I didn't mean that. This is and whatever they their excuses are behind that. So we just need to work to get better and help educate and support. And at the end of the day, we live in this world together, and we don't have to be best friends and so harmonious, but just to be able to understand and respect one another, I suppose. And old cliches told when you're young, if you've got nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all.
Yeah, the Cyril Rioli situation, as you said, like if it's not brought up, it's hard to get on top of and deal, and everyone can obviously view their opinions and their thoughts and what was going through their head if things were said. But like, I know myself, everyone that knows Cyril loves Cyril Rioli, and I was the same as you. It's shattering to think that he's left the game because he felt like he was pushed out or didn't want to sort of head in that direction anymore. And I know for a fact, because I saw it firsthand. I was there when he first arrived in his first year. I saw how much care and love was there for someone. But it just takes one person that can bring it all undone. And I know Hawthorn for a long period didn't have a great success at getting Indigenous players on the list and playing consistent football. And then along came a guy called Chance Bateman, Mark Williams, shotgun, Buddy Franklin. And obviously, you got guys like Sean Burgoyne who are just wonderful people and just unbelievable, for what they've real leaders in the industry in the way they've gone about it. But it just breaks you, because Cyril, his story is amazing. Like the Tiwi Islands, he told me growing up as a young kid, he used to practice kicking a plastic bottle, a 2-litre plastic bottle. That was his football. Yep. And I've even seen it when he was finishing up his career. You'd throw him a plastic bottle and he could kick it through any doorway, or he could hit any spot on the wall if you wanted him to. But for someone like that then to move down to Melbourne, to go to a private school, to try and fit in and get himself ready for AFL football, then turn into the player that he was, which was just one of the all-time great AFL footballers, one of the very best and most talented Indigenous players, to feel like that he doesn't feel welcome or loved, that's, that definitely hurts, and you say Adam Goods as well. We can't have that situation. We've got to be able to find a way to get on top of it straight away, address those issues or concerns or question marks, and there has been a lot of work, but there's still so much more to be done, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely, Crawford. And the thing I look back about when things happen, you may not remember exactly point to point what had happened and how it occurred, but the thing that you'll never forget is how it made you feel, and how you feel less than or be feeling dehumanised or whatever term you want to use, or not good enough and not valued. It's you never forget those feelings, and no doubt everyone have had experiences where they've been disrespected, and we all know how that feels. And so a lot of people who don't understand racism and are sort of not people of colour or Indigenous or people of colour or from other different cultural backgrounds, it's if they don't understand that, it's you never forget how it's made you feel. And as you said, mate, it's with the Hawthorn Footy Club, but it's not everyone as well. There's been incidents and people and certain, but you can't paint, as I said about Collingwood, can't paint the whole brush with the club with the same brush. So it's an ongoing issue, it's an ongoing journey, and through, I think, conversations like this, and if we can help and try to learn from one another and try to be better and get better, we'll have those safe cultural spaces where we don't lose people to the game, or people to workplaces or whatever it may be because of the colour of their skin, where they come from, how they dress, or whatever it may be. So we'll just keep trying to get better and do what we can and educate where we can, I suppose. And
we've come a long way, haven't we? Like over the last 20 years, we've come a long way. We've still got a long way to go. But so when you go back to your, starting your AFL career, were you not necessarily out on the field, but just wandering the streets of Melbourne, being an Indigenous man, were you racially vilified every day, pretty much?
Oh, yeah, certainly. Yeah, you'd see things, mate. You'd see little things like you walk past someone in a shop and like someone grabbed their handbag just a little tighter. You'd see security guards follow you. You'd see people at, if you're getting served, someone in front of you, they'd get a nice hello, how are you? And then sort of you're next up and you get nothing. Like, it's just those little small things as well. And, you can't help it. You don't want to look into it too much, but when they happened and they're a common theme, you notice, what's going on. And it's so disheartening and shattering. It's sad, and
and that's happening every day. Like I maybe not now because the world is getting, I think, a bit better. But
she happens.
I'm sure it still happens. Don't you worry about that. But like back then, I know the education wasn't there and the understanding wasn't there. So that's pretty full on, isn't it? Really, when you think about it. Like everywhere you go, you got people reacting.
Yeah, it is, and I suppose you can have a look. As a young fella, not knowing sort of how to deal with it, you sort of within in your shell, and sort of you're withdrawn a little bit, and not to be, as I said, not knowing how you're going to react to it. Sometimes it's a little bit anger, sometimes it's disappointment, and it's just thinking, far out, we're here again. But as you said, it's certainly come a long way with even with Dad and Uncle Phil playing and guys before that, with the pathway that they were able to pay for people like myself and Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander footballers has absolutely been amazing. But I think the work that we continue and try to do is obviously a step in the right direction, and as I said, it's an ongoing journey, and we'll just keep trying to head in the right direction.
All right, let's focus on some of the Indigenous players. Ones that you've seen or played against. Give me your top three.
Top three, man. That's
come on,
that's
don't sit
call.
on the fence.
I won't sit on the fence. Okay, then I'll have to say, I think Cyril, to be able to play against him and see what he was able to do, and just at the drop of a hat to be able to just turn a game on its head. He was just so exciting. He was an amazing player, and as you said, he was a teammate of yours for a fair while. You put me on the spot a little bit here, Crawford, but I think Adam Goods as well, two-time Brownlow medalist, and he was just an absolute star. He was All-Australian numerous times, all over the field, as a wingman, as a centre forward, as a midfielder. So he was a star, and I think we can't go, can't pass the big man, great man who's kicked 1,000.
What did you think of when he kicked 1,000 goals and one running on?
It was just surreal.
It was amazing, wasn't it?
It was such an amazing moment, and I think...
And he loved it. He
did.
He loved it. I've spoken to him about it, and he said it was scary, but I loved it. He said it was just, it's those scenes, You won't get that anywhere, and especially in Sydney. I think Sydney with security, that was the best place for it to happen, because Melbourne, I reckon we're better with our security. In Sydney...
Did they have security, did they?
No, Sydney are like, whatever, let's go, we're free spirits, get out there. It was incredible.
Oh, mate, I loved it. I was sitting on the couch watching it, and when it came up and just sort of the build-up, you could probably feel that, before the game there was a little bit about it. His sister came over from LA, he wanted to get it done, and the first goal and the second goal, his reactions, I almost thought that he's the fourth and the one to bring it up was almost when he dodged 3 or 4 people and he didn't quite get the purchase on the snap. Yeah. But, just the atmosphere and the build-up and the energy was absolutely crazy. And then obviously when it happened and everyone ran onto the crowd, that's been well documented, and some of the photos are just such an amazing moment in time that none of us will never forget, and it'll be
some of the best pictures you're ever going to see on a sporting field.
Yep, for sure. And it's going to be like, where were you when? Where were you when Buddy kicked 1,000? So one of those moments, and to be able to see it and understand it and the enormity of it, we're very privileged to have been able to see that. So
and being an Indigenous man, like you talk about Adam Good, Cyril Rioli, unbelievable players, and the list goes on and on. But to see Buddy Franklin representing the Indigenous community, surely that puts hairs on the back of your neck standing up.
It's an enormous amount of pride, and to be able to, even see him draped in the Aboriginal flag after the game as well. He's the first Aboriginal player to kick 1,000 goals. He's the 6th at the moment all time in the leading goal kicking, and of all time goals. And for him to be able to do that, so proud. And for people to be able to, young kids to be able to see, and someone who looks like them and talks like them and has got the same culture as them, to be able to do that just gives them so much hope. And to be able, maybe one day there could be someone else, who could do what Buddy did. So so proud.
Now, one day I'll get over it, but could you imagine the full forward line at Richmond, Franklin, Richardson and Krakeour?
Oh, mate. Far out. Mate, I don't know what happened there in that draft, but I would have loved that. That would have been crazy.
Almost Roughhead could have gone in there.
Oh, mate, he could have.
Happy with Lids kicking the ball down. I'll keep Deludio with pick one, but it would have been pretty handy to have Buddy up in that forward line with you.
Oh, mate, it would have been wicked. He's, as you said, he's a sort of different player to Richo as well, and I think that would have complemented to well. But the what ifs, Crawf, eh? The what ifs.
Now, we've absolutely loved having a chat to you today. You've been a sensational guest, and we finished with some hard hitting questions. Best sledge you heard on a footy field?
Oh, best sledge. That one, I've been trying to think about that one, but I can't recall a best sledge straight away right now, and I've sort of been thinking about it a little bit over our discussion, but no, I can't think of a sledge at the moment.
Right. Did you have a sledge when you were kicking goals? Just look at your opponent and go, mate, what are you doing here today?
No, I don't think so. I think
kept quiet.
I just kept quiet. I just tried to get a kick, but I don't know if it was never a sledge, but Gavin Wanganeen, I played on him early days, and he was just an absolute star. Like, he taught me, just took me to school all the time. I was just a young kid. He'd never say anything. You'd probably think he would, but he'd just sort of go and do what he did. Wouldn't let you get the footy. Go and probably set up a goal and just sort of come back and sort of just look at you and be like, hurry up, mate, can you go and play on someone else, please? So, I can't think of a sledge, Joe, but what's the next one?
Best spray you ever heard?
Best spray was probably Mick Malthouse on Sharad Wellingham. After Sharad probably had about 38 touches, I think, on the Queen's birthday in 2011. Had an outstanding game, but didn't have one of the greatest games against Gold Coast the week after. We were able to get up and we won, but the halftime spray is, I won't share exactly what it was said over air, but it had me biting my hand and poking Leon Davis next to me, trying not to laugh. So I was almost crying. And Mick wasn't too impressed about his efforts that he was able to do, and thought he might have been living last week, and calling him a little bit of Hollywood too. So that was pretty funny.
Yeah, Mick's got the combination of, he has got a quick wit, but he doesn't miss you when those glaring eyes go down to you.
Mate, that's why most of the time, unless I did something good, my eyes are on the ground, and I didn't make too much eye contact with Mick.
Andy Krakeour, you're a star. You're a star on the field, off the field. You're an inspiration to so many. You're a legend. Thanks so much for having a chat.
No, Quinn and Crawford, I do greatly appreciate you getting me on the show and having a bit of a chat. Some really, really good discussions and education points as well. So thank you for welcoming me in, and I enjoyed my time on the show. Thank you.
Good on you, Andy. Well done, mate.
It's been great fun. And punters, you've been listening to Tabs Inside 50.